So we live, and this is something I'd love for you to comment. How do leaders sustain themselves in the two worlds? The one long view where you're working toward the policy change while you're educating people about what an energy policy would even look like, helping them find a voice in the push toward that, or on immigration, and daily meeting with the people who suffer in the sort of vacuum and limbo that lack of policy creates. So that's the nonprofit world, I think, isn't it? So
I think it goes to the heart of what's missing in 21st century leadership. And I mentioned one of the qualities, which is the time span that we think about. But there's another dynamic in the leadership toolkit that has barely been picked up. Fortunately, by some leaders, which can set some good role model examples, but I'd say that it's probably only picked up by less than 2 or 3% of corporate leaders. And corporate leaders have a big role in this country. And that's the importance of social responsibility in the leadership model. No one should be allowed to become a leader of a profitable company or a company that seeks profit who is not ingrained, indoctrinated, and absorbed the importance of social responsibility. Because the premise on which a corporation is permitted to make a profit is public acceptance. And it's appalling to me that corporation after corporation after corporation at the leadership level doesn't acknowledge or behave as though that corporate social responsibility is at the beginning of the business model. And if it's not at the beginning of the business model and it's only somewhere placed at the end and it's stuck in the PR department, give it up. Give it up, it's hopeless. The social responsibility model for leadership has to start with both the board of directors and the leader that they choose to head the organization and be a part of the executive committee's ongoing conversation. And so if you look, if corporations look at markets as if they're grocery stores, where they can just, sell some products and take the money, then, our business model in this country is going to go kaput. The social responsibility, given that government doesn't work, given that it won't work, even though it may try, you end up with responsibility being devolved to the other institutions, including corporations, in the metropolitan centers. And so the corporations that operate in this community across this 10-county region have a duty and a responsibility at the executive level to build into their leadership capability this sense of social well-being, corporate social responsibility, and act on it.
Isn't that one of the things that's made Houston work, that's happened?
It has happened in pockets. And it has happened in large measure because Houston has had some extraordinary, wealthy philanthropists. And it has corporations that do contribute, but many, many walk away from the opportunity. I mean, just look at the United Way proceeds. On the one hand, they're impressive. On the other hand, they're mediocre, given the wealth in the community, and given the fact that some companies don't even participate, and they walk away from it, and as though, well, that's somebody else. This somebody else's turn. We have more important things to do. We have to go make money. And to me, the license to make money is the acceptance within the community of somebody as a whole neighbor. And take any of the issues we face, education. If we don't educate the young people in this community, who's going to fill the jobs in the future? Transportation. If we're going to sit in parking lots on our freeways because we're unwilling to deal with the requirements of public transportation and the need for some kind of a more efficient transportation system, then we're just going to choke ourselves to death. And on to the areas where it has to be. And if some people say, well, we're only a division of a larger global company that sits here, and the decisions are made, you know, at our corporate headquarters in some other part of the country or world, that's a shirking of responsibility. If you have an investment here of hundreds or thousands of people, and you are taking from the community, you have a requirement, in my mind, under a social responsibility formula, is to give it back as well. And to give it back at a level that is commensurate with what you're obtaining from the community. And so we have had good success with this, and there are some big name companies that can deserve all the credit in the world because they've been there, they've been players. But I'll tell you, there are some that are just invisible. And they want to remain invisible, and they shouldn't be, because it doesn't match the 21st century formula. And if I may say, before you cut us off, one more thing about the one more thing about the 21st century formula is what has to come together at the end is leadership that's coherent. And the coherence means putting together all the qualities at the same time so that everything works. Coherence is a strange word. We don't hear it very often. But what works is coherent. I just happened to be at a meeting yesterday of the Center for Houston's Future, and we were talking about the aftermath of Hurricane Ike and the response that has happened thus far in the larger community to deal with the effects of a potential repeat. And it often is under the banner of the Ike Dike. And anybody from this community who was here during Ike knows that 2 weeks without electricity is a long time to try to live in Houston in September. And 2 weeks without an ATM, 2 weeks without lights, 2 weeks without hot water, 2 weeks without cooking capability is a long, long time. And the first day might be a fun barbecue when you're emptying the freezer, but after that, it's hell on earth. But here we are as a community, and we're not approaching it in a coherent manner. We've got a bunch of frightened people that live very near to the coast who are desperate for anything. Austin has nothing, no stake in this game whatsoever. Washington, no stake in the game. But yet I remember sitting in a room in October 2008 where President George W. Bush asked his father and his father's successor, President Clinton, could you please help by going to Houston and going to the communities impacted by Ike to see what we can do. And to sit there with George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton and President Bill Clinton and to hear them reflect on how important it is that problems like this get solved, and solved in humanitarian ways, in ways that are, quote, coherent, where all the different aspects hang together, was refreshing. But then they left. The financial crisis took hold. Ike became, you know, a minor story on the 6th page of the 2nd section of the newspaper, and everybody forgot. And since then, we've moved on until the next hurricane. So coherence is something that is, it implies so much. It implies continuity. It implies all the sections working together. It implies the not-for-profit who service people working with the corporate who employ people, and on and on and on. And so if we don't get this leadership void resolved by getting a more appropriate model in place for the 21st century, I fear that our future will be more like our past, which is just not good enough. And we have all this intelligence, we have the potential for innovation, we have the potential for common ground agreement, and I worry that we will miss the opportunity because we don't have enough leaders out there who really get it, who understand that the plot matters, and their contribution or their role in this community matters every bit as much as the physical presence that they have here. And it's the leadership agenda that I think has got to come together across, yes, a collaborative group of people, but because we share the same water system, the same air, the same highway system, we also share the same democratic ideals of how our society should work together, I don't lose hope. I think we have to find a way.
I think we're gonna, we do, yeah.